Welcome to Sheni V'Chamishi. I got a request many times to talk about purgatory, hell, punishment, fiery hell, all these little things that people believe is part of Judaism. One boy said to me, that's what he got in Cheder, in Litvische Cheder. They spoke about people burning. I'm at a cemetery. This is not your traditional cemetery where the body is buried with the flesh. The flesh is usually burned, and then the bones are collected and stored. Now first I want to show you something great, because people are very smart. You have a rusty old wheel and it's used to cover a trash so animals don't come in at night. We're gonna be there's two cemeteries here right across the street from my apartment, and then there's the one across the street from here. And of course I'm looking for what interests me first is Jewish symbols. There are Christian symbols on these cemeteries, even though Christianity only entered I'm in Tokyo, sorry I didn't say, next to the Roppongi Hills. The Roppongi Hills should be that way. It's a downtown it's like a hilly downtown. You'll see it later. You could look it up in Tokyo, Roppongi Hills. I'm in Tokyo, Japan. This is I'm looking for Jewish symbols on the Kvarim here. These could have been Jews that assimilated but had their tradition and belief, or if and the Jewish star could be symbol of the man's ethnicity or religion, or did he change, or did he come as a Jewish scientist? Was he a Russian Jew, or we'll see. But another interesting thing is this man has two missile warheads on his Matzo, and is very beautifully decorated. You'll understand the traditions of they put the flowers here, and then they have I'll show you one. And this is very old. In the religion, priests used to light candles in there. Priests have them outside their house. They have it. You're going to see actually a treat today. You're going to see a family actually paying respect to a dead person with the way they do with drinking sake. It's kind of like a wine, like a rice wine, which is like a 13% usually, or more, maybe 18%. You can buy it in your store if you want to taste sake. It's actually pretty good. Interesting how I'll show you how they do the incense. It's really interesting. I think we got one here. This one is fresh flowers. This must have been a yard site recently, and here you put the incense. You see, it's still fresh. And then you have you can use an app to translate Japanese by taking a photo. It's an app you get from Google, and you can take a photo of a menu in a restaurant. This Jewish star, just so you don't get tricked, I was in a nightclub, and there were two big Jewish stars hanging, like a perfect mug in David. There was no couldn't go wrong. And people, I just thought that's interesting. That do the people understand what it is? And because it's pretty much it's gained itself to be a Jewish symbol. It's the Israeli flag, and I don't know other countries that use that. Even in Iran, Jews used to have the star on their bag, and then Rabbi Weinberg had to speak to the Ayatollahs and explain to them that this is just a religion. This is not political. They're not Zionists. Don't chase them, arrest them for having those stars on their bags. It would take a lot of time for everybody to pull those stars off their bags, and there's no need. There's a family paying respects there. You could see, I just don't want to interrupt them, but you could see them. They're just cleaning around I would ask them if I can video. They're cleaning around the Matzeva. Okay, let's talk about the dead. Number one, organ donation. Halacha has come around and realized halacha is whatever the rabbis say today. Halacha is not what some prophet said 3,000 years ago. Halacha is not, even if you look in the Gemara, halacha is not what God said. So even if, like in halacha, one guy said, let this tree give water, and they had an argument, if I'm right, and if you're right, different machlekes, and he goes, you can't bring a raya from a tree. And he says, let this rock, do this. And you look in the emergence of rabbinic Judaism and the series by Shai Gafni, you'll get a beautiful description of how halacha was created. So, Whatever the rabbis say, that's the law. So organ donation, especially, we're not talking about bones, which is the main part of what you could claim has to be respected, but the flesh could be donated, right? You could if you're allowed to donate blood, ki badam hu nefesh. Imagine if a Jewish group today, some splinter group said, hey, you can't donate blood because badam hu nefesh, you're giving a part of your neshama to someone, and usually you can't decide who you're donating it to. Is it a Gentile or a sinner, a Jewish sinner, because he doesn't keep Shabbos like your grandmother did? So, of course, halacha has come around, and they do organ donations. It's important for any educated student to understand that religion is not an individual. It's an organized set of beliefs. So all you have to do is organize the religion and the belief, and you could do anything. You could bring back magicians and messiahs into Judaism, even if it was pushed out for 2,000 years. You could recreate it in any cult or group, Hasidic or non-Hasidic, in any area, just like you have today, Lev Tahor. You can do that. So these are a little bit more magnificent. It reminds me of a stelae. Okay, here we have two crosses, like I said. You see, I was right. And even, let's see what was left here. This is fresh flowers. It must have been, like I said, a yard site. It's water. Yeah, I just tasted this. This is water left here. There maybe is some reason. So this is a cross, right? So this is, you could say it's Yechezkel Hanavi's fault that Christianity traveled the world, because the way the Hebrew God was designed later was that it's a religion that could be exported or portable. Because today you have a Jew that never visits Israel once in his life, and Christians who never been to Jerusalem. It's not a must for them anymore. How could you be a Christian or a Jew and never go to Jerusalem, where for the Christian it's where Jesus was resurrected, and for the Jew it's Harabayis, right? So Yechezkel said that this is like this God, that you could stay faithful to him even if you're abandoned and you lose your wars and things like that. So this fact that you have a cross in Japan, which if you look at the history of Christianity in Japan and in China, the way the Christians were trying to bring the concept of a father sky god to people who didn't have this concept in their jargon was very interesting, and they had their own superstitions and beliefs, just like Easter and Christmas and bunny, Easter bunny, and people still have their superstitions and beliefs and traditions. So Christianity didn't come and get rid of that. Even you have stories in Martin Luther, who was more of an anti-Avodah Zarah. In Christianity, they also have a crazy moral panic about idolatry, right? As Woody Allen once asked a Christian TV pastor, what's the worst commandment, the most important commandment? Oh, idolatry. And he goes, what's the problem with that? And God, he says, don't you think it's egomaniacal a little bit? And he's like, no, God is perfect. And he goes, really? So this is how, the mind gets, your logic starts to turn off after a while when your religious beliefs direct your thinking. So we found already, two crosses. That must have been a couple. And remember, that should be maybe 100 years. A pretty guess, unless I met the family and asked them, how did someone from Japan, which you have already two religions to choose from, find Jesus, which is a Hebrew God, which is from Rome or Jerusalem. If you would have a Jew here, it would be a Jew that came to the island for some reason and died, and that was his identity or his faith, and everybody needs religion is really good for death. For some people they're scared that you won't be buried. In your life you can come and go as you please, but you always wonder how are you gonna do when you're dead, and that gets a lot of people to fall for religion. As a matter of fact, in the Shinto religion, one of the most important parts of it is the death ceremony, and you have to pay a lot of money for that, and they give you a whole, and I guess they prepare you for the afterlife. So what is Judaism? Oh, here we have What does Judaism think about the afterlife? Well, Koheles says that when you die, you're dead. Koheles was probably, Ecclesiastes was probably written by Rome, Greek philosophy. So what's important to me about the afterlife and stuff in Judaism is religion is an organized set of beliefs. It's not what you and your grandmother believe, that if you believe your grandmother is Mashiach, it's not religion. But if everybody believes you, then it's religion. If you get 100 people, then maybe it's a new religion. It started when your grandmother was born. And you could base it off Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, or Scientology, meaning you could use them as your background, because it's not easy to write a brand new religion from scratch. But you'll definitely, I guarantee you, in the Penguin Book of Living Religions, you're going to be in there, as long as you have enough people following. Here we have more crosses, but you're going to be so surprised when I find you a Jewish cemetery right here in the middle of Tokyo. And these are expensive plots. It's right in the middle of a city. This is not, no Schmendriks get buried here. Wear long sleeves and long pants. Avoid showing skin. Wow, look, like Meir Shodim. Avoid wearing sandals or being bare feet. Use bug sprays, insects repellent sprays when needed. I see. So to avoid the showing of I'm wearing shorts today, so I'm mamish. But it's only, here's some Westerners finding some of their cousins. They're walking by. Yeah. So once it's organized, the belief, like when Judaism adopted the concept of hell, probably came from Dante and some people's imagination of a place where you burn and fire. And then we used words like Gehenna, which Gehenna was really a trash place where dead bodies would go. So then it came that Gehenna is actually Be'er Shachas Shel Tachtis, and the fiery pit where people who don't love God go. So if God was a firefighter, and the news reporters came and said, "Hey God, was there any casualties?" And he goes, "Yeah, one casualty." And God's like dressed in his firefighter gears, because Hashem is Lefi Ma'asav Ani Nikra, right? And he goes, Did you were any casualties? Yeah, what happened? I have a policy, I only save people who love me. And then the guy's like, was there, do you know who started the fire? And God's like, I started the fire, thank you. Imagine. So yeah, here we have, interestingly, a Westerner, you can't get better, Kenneth Brooks, and he dies 1903. Interestingly, it says 1894 to 1903, so that means that he either was here, our Reverend S.P. Fulton. He was the youngest son of Reverend S.P. and R.P. Fulton. Let's get, S.P. Fulton in Japan. So this is the time that he was in Japan. This is not his lifetime, because that only gives you 6, 7, 8, 9 years. So, but that's a Westerner. Here's a guy for Samuel John Milliken, for 47 years a minister of the gospel of Christ. His servants shall serve him, and they shall see his face. 1826 to 1900. You see, this is already reverends and people selling Christianity to the local Japanese. But if you look at the history, Westerners weren't even welcome here to sell their shmatas. You had to go on a special island. So this is when it opened up. And there was some American guy, and he put his warships and opened the island by force, so on and so forth. Missionaries of many types. Maria T. Pitcher, widow of Reverend Albert True, and 22 years a missionary of the Lord Jesus Christ in Japan, at rest April 18. You remember, these missionaries had a hard time interpreting what Lord means, because God, as the religious Jews write G-D, is just mistakenly, they should be writing also Lord with a dash, because God is just a position. God, it's a position. I'm a God, meaning I'm on the top. I'm in the sky. That's what I do. What do you do for a living? I shit on people. I watch humanity suffer. That's my job. What do? I create shit. I'm in charge of the Big Bang, So this looks like it's a Dutch. taking a guess without reading. Gottfried Wagner. Here ruht, here rests Dr. Phil Gottfried Wagner, geboren zu Hanover. He was born to Hanover, maybe that's the name of a person or a place. Gestorben zu Tokyo. That's how they spell Tokyo. And then, 1892. He probably, if he was just a doctor, he died and he wasn't selling people superstition stories and causing trouble. He was actually healing people for real. That's a much better, that's a much better monument. No? What do you want to be? What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you die? You want to be remembered as someone who gave something to the world, or someone that sold Bubba Mises that any graduate student could take you and explain how your whole life was based on Bubba Mises? Professor then Stas Zwischenschrafen, geboren Juni 1848 and gestorben, and you see how it's a geb would be geboren and gest would be gestorben. I figured it out from there. You see, when you read, every time in yeshiva they say, if you don't know what Asher Tevis, always keep reading the line and you'll figure out that Asher Tevis. If you don't understand where Judaism got all the karbonis from, just read about Yisrei Kohen Midyan and you'll figure it out. That's where the Jews got the concept of Kohen and Kohen Gadol. Even in this religion, you have chief high priest. The chief priest, and then Clinton comes, Hillary, and she gives a nice gift to the shrine, to the main shrine in Tokyo. How do temples be created? The kings make them. The Emperor Meji's shrine, which means the Beis HaMikdash of Shlomo HaMelech. That's what they should call it. The Mikdash, Beis HaMikdash of King Solomon, or King Herod, a goy. King Cyrus, another goy. What's going on here? Here's more crosses. You see, I like the people who religion psychologically motivated them to travel to places and give up their lives and have to learn a new language, not because they were kicked out of their country, but they dedicated themselves and their comfort. See, religion is a very strong psychological motivator. People can go to God-forsaken places, spiritually and materially, and give up their lives. Imagine what religion can do to people who have no jobs and have no professions and don't have skills and don't have what to offer. What could it do to them? It could make them become more harmful and damaging than they already could be naturally. Naturally, you have a schnozzy nose, you poop in your pants, but when you take a person uneducated in the sciences first, and you stick him in religion, you're creating, as the Rebbe would say, the Lubavitcher Rebbe would say, a ber b'shus rabim. You're creating a pit that people will trip on. So you're going to create someone who's going to give people bad advice based on bad evidence. So when you have a guy who has a cross, but he's not a missionary, he didn't run a church, he ran a clinic, and he healed people. He didn't do nonsense, and back then, religious people were a lot more crazy than today. The president of Yale University at the time was also a theologian. Back then, everybody was a theologian. He said that vaccinations is playing a trick on God. Oop, a grasshopper just landed on the screen. Great, green, beautiful, fresh. This thing, how old is she? Wow. Come into the video. Gone. Laid to rest here in the foreign section of the Ayama Cemetery are men and women who came to Japan in the 19th and 20th centuries. Many of them played leading roles and contributed greatly to the modernization of Japan. We have erected this monument to commemorate their achievements and ensure their memory is passed on to posterity. You see, this is beautiful concept, and if you if you sit by Rabbi Sachs's class at the Pesach program, or you watch my show, and he says that we gave this and we gave that. So, like me, like if I'm a gullible human and a spiritual sucker, like a tamim, like shaking my head, amen, and I believe it. So I got to find the Jews that came here. They had to be accepted. They were pretty big in science at the time. So they had to be accepted. This is also a jogging path for people, and these people respect the dead. They believe that the dead give them protection from spirits. I'm speaking about modern people, like my wife. So yeah, and people like it here because it gives them a little bit Yeah, but they use it, the path, and it cuts through the cemetery, and it's a jogging thing, which I do in the morning myself, and it's not any sign of disrespect. It's very interesting to see how different cultures have different ways of how they treat the dead. I'll finish off with a short story. I have an uncle who studied in Moscow, studied physics in the University of Moscow at the time. It was very, I think it was called a numerus clausus, something like a certain amount of Jews were admitted, and he he got in. You had to be Einstein to get in, pretty much. They don't just accept Jews because they have Rahmanis. And he till today believes in dead people helping the living. So he always sends me, the Berditchever, could you put the name, my name, and your name, and this name, and could you send a fax to Chabad in Dnepr and put a name, and this guy's great. And I always, if I send an email or a name, and he really doesn't have much time on his hands right now, he has to take care of his health, but he mutchezach to do all this stuff. And sometimes I try to give him some supernatural answers to his supernatural questions. It's not easy to go with reason when you're faced with something that's the opposite, completely unreasonable. So I would say to him, no, the Yitzchak Berditchever said that he doesn't accept names anymore. I'm not doing names. Go take care of your problems the right way. I don't do magic tricks and good luck, and I don't change things. I don't get, God doesn't give you a brand new kitten because it's going to change the whole cycle of the world, and then the CEO of an important company is going to get hit by a car because you got your brand new kitten, and if you want to know how that chain of events works, you could Google it. But I try to get him to lay off the begging and sticking names in the dead, especially when it's not his relatives, it's just tzaddikim, and it gets out of hand. Thank you for watching, and I'm going to continue searching for Jews that came to Japan in the 19th century. Maybe some Hasidim of the Rebbe Rashab came here. I'm sure the Rebbe Rashab had one Chassid that was trained in some sciences that were helpful to mankind. I mean, Samach Vav, it's a book this fat. We got to be providing something useful in the end. Thank you for watching Sheni V'Chamishi, and enjoy.